Hi, I'm Amanda Carlisle, and I never imagined that hearing those words from my sister-in-law could change my life. She said my husband regretted marrying me. My heart shattered. What seemed like harmless family gossip quickly turned into a financial nightmare, until the lawyer revealed the shocking truth. Someone had been draining our savings without me even realizing it. And the truth about who was responsible left me completely speechless. I need to tell you about the day my world fell apart, and how somehow it managed to put itself back together in the most unexpected way. I'm 34, married to David for 8 years, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. We live in suburban Ohio, nothing fancy, but it's ours. At least I thought it was, until I discovered how wrong I could be about everything. The trouble started at David's family barbecue in July. His sister Rachel has always been complicated. She's 2 years younger than David, unmarried, and has this way of making little comments that stick under your skin like splinters. That day, she was helping me carry dishes to the kitchen when she stopped, looked me straight in the eye and said, "You know, Amanda, David told me he sometimes regrets marrying you." The words hit me like cold water, and I felt my knees go weak. For weeks, I replayed every conversation, every moment from our recent months together. I started questioning everything about our relationship, wondering if the distance I'd been sensing was actually regret. David seemed oblivious to my internal spiral, which somehow made it worse. When I finally worked up the courage to ask him if he was happy, he just looked confused and said, "Of course he was." But Rachel's words had planted themselves deep, growing like weeds in my mind. The financial discovery came by accident in late August. I was organizing our home office when I decided to check our savings account online. We'd been saving for a down payment on a bigger house, around $35,000. Instead, the screen showed a balance that made my heart stop. $3,000 and change. $32,000 had simply vanished from our joint savings account over the past 6 months, and I had no idea how. I stared at the computer screen, refreshing it over and over, thinking there had to be some mistake. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the transaction history, seeing withdrawal after withdrawal that I hadn't authorized or even known about. Each one was for varying amounts, but they added up to devastating. Someone had been systematically draining our account, always on weekdays, always during business hours when I was at work at the dental office. When David walked through the door that evening, I was sitting at the dining room table surrounded by bank statements. The look on his face when he saw the papers was pure confusion, not guilt. "This can't be right," he whispered after I showed him the latest statement, sinking into the chair beside me. "Amanda, I swear to you, I didn't take this money. I don't understand what's happening here." The panic in his voice seemed genuine, but after Rachel's words, I wasn't sure what to believe. We spent hours that night going through every record we could find, trying to make sense of the missing money. David called the bank's fraud department, but they explained that since the withdrawals were made with our debit card and PIN, they weren't considered unauthorized. Someone with access to our account information had been stealing from us for months. The question that hung heavy between us was who, and trust had become a fragile thing since Rachel's revelation. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I lay awake listening to David breathe beside me, wondering if I really knew the man I'd married. In the morning, I called in sick to work and made an appointment with a lawyer. I needed to understand our options, needed someone objective to help me figure out what was happening to our marriage and our money. The lawyer, Patricia Webb, listened without judgment and recommended a private investigator who specialized in financial fraud. Mike Torres was a former police detective who promised to have preliminary findings within a week. David supported the investigation completely, giving Mike full access to all our accounts, credit cards, even his work computer and phone. "I want to know what happened as much as you do," he told me. "Our marriage can't survive this kind of uncertainty, and frankly, I'm scared about our financial future." His willingness to cooperate made me start to doubt my suspicions about him. Mike called me at work the following Thursday, asking if I could meet him that afternoon. His voice was serious but not alarmed, and he said he'd found something I needed to see. In his small office, Mike spread out documents that would change everything I thought I knew about my family. "The money trail leads to a very specific place," he said, pointing to bank records. The truth was more shocking than I could have imagined. "These withdrawals from your account were immediately deposited into another account, one that was opened 6 months ago." He slid a paper across his desk, a bank account application with Rachel's signature. She had been systematically stealing from us, using information she'd gained from having access to David's wallet during family gatherings, photographing our debit card when we weren't looking. She worked at a bank herself, so she understood how to avoid triggering fraud alerts. The room felt like it was spinning as Mike explained how Rachel had pulled off the theft. Small, regular withdrawals, always using the stolen debit card information to build her own savings account for a condo down payment. "There's more," Mike continued. "She's done this before at her previous job, though nothing was ever prosecuted. I thought about all the times she'd visited our house, all the family gatherings where she'd smiled while planning to rob us." Mike had already contacted the district attorney's office, and they were prepared to file charges against Rachel for bank fraud and theft. The evidence was overwhelming: bank records, security footage, even text messages bragging to friends about her unexpected income. I felt sick thinking about how she'd looked me in the eye and told me my husband regretted marrying me, all while systematically robbing us. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. The confrontation with Rachel happened at Patricia's office, with Mike present as a witness. When she walked in and saw the assembled group, her face changed immediately. She knew she'd been caught. Patricia presented the evidence calmly, giving Rachel a chance to explain herself before we proceeded with criminal charges. Her response shocked me even more than the theft itself, revealing the depth of her resentment toward our marriage. "You two have always had everything handed to you," Rachel said, her voice bitter and defensive. "David got the good job, the perfect wife, the nice house. I've been struggling while you save for an even bigger house. I figured you could spare some of it." She looked directly at me and added, "And yes, I told you David regretted marrying you because I wanted you to break up. You don't deserve him." The venom made me understand this wasn't just about money. Patricia gave Rachel one option: immediate full restitution plus interest, or criminal prosecution. Rachel chose to pay us back, liquidating her savings and taking a loan against her car. Within 2 weeks, every dollar was returned, plus fees and investigation costs. But the money was just the beginning of healing what she'd broken. David and I went to counseling to rebuild the trust that Rachel's manipulation had damaged. Today, 6 months later, our savings account is healthy again, and we've put a down payment on that bigger house we'd been planning. More importantly, we've learned to trust each other completely and to recognize manipulation when we see it. Rachel is facing criminal charges despite paying us back. Her pattern of behavior was too serious to ignore. We haven't spoken to her since that day in Patricia's office. Looking back, I realized that sometimes the worst betrayals come from the people closest to us, the ones who know exactly which words will hurt the most. Rachel understood that attacking my marriage was more devastating than just stealing our money, but she underestimated how strong David and I actually are together. What she meant to destroy ended up making us stronger, more united, more committed to protecting what we've built together. What seemed like family gossip turned into a financial nightmare, then revealed a truth that left me speechless. Sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the most painful packages, and sometimes the people who try to break us apart end up showing us exactly how unbreakable we really are. I'm Amanda Carlisle, and this is how I learned that trust, once tested by fire, can emerge stronger than ever before. The hardest part wasn't the money, or even Rachel's lies. It was watching David grieve the sister he thought he knew. In the weeks after the confrontation, I'd find him staring out our kitchen window with this lost expression, like he was trying to solve a puzzle that had no answer. "I keep thinking about all the times she hugged me," he told me one morning over coffee. Was she already planning to steal from us then? The pain in his voice made my heart ache for both of us. David's parents took the news about as well as you'd expect. His mother cried on our couch for an hour, apologizing over and over for raising a daughter who could do such a thing. His father, usually the quiet type, was furious in a way I'd never seen before. $32,000, he kept repeating, shaking his head. And she tried to destroy your marriage, too. The shame in their faces was almost harder to witness than our own betrayal had been. The extended family divided into camps pretty quickly. Some relatives believed Rachel's version of events, that we were exaggerating, that family should forgive family no matter what. David's cousin Jenny actually called me vindictive for pressing charges. Others were horrified and cut contact with Rachel completely. Family barbecues became minefields of awkward conversations and careful seating arrangements. I started to understand why some people just disappear when drama hits their families this hard. What surprised me most was how the theft changed my relationship with money entirely. Before this happened, I was pretty casual about our finances. I trusted our systems, trusted that our money would be there when we needed it. Now I check our accounts obsessively, sometimes twice a day. David installed banking apps on both our phones, so we get instant notifications for every transaction. It feels silly sometimes, but that security blanket helps me sleep better at night. The legal proceedings dragged on longer than I expected. Rachel hired a lawyer who tried to argue that family theft was somehow different from real theft, that the emotional bonds should matter in sentencing. The prosecutor thankfully didn't buy it. During one court hearing, Rachel's lawyer actually suggested that David and I were partly responsible for creating an environment of temptation by talking about our savings at family gatherings. The audacity of it left me speechless. Rachel wrote me a letter while awaiting sentencing, and I almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity got the better of me. 3 pages of self-justification and half-hearted apologies, with a final paragraph that blamed our perfect marriage for making her feel inadequate. She ended by saying she hoped someday I'd understand her perspective. I showed the letter to David, and we both agreed that some bridges are meant to stay burned. Sometimes forgiveness isn't the healthiest option. The strangest thing was how other people reacted when we told them what happened. Some friends were appropriately horrified, offering support and understanding. But others seemed almost fascinated by the drama, asking for details in a way that felt voyeuristic. A few people at work actually said things like, "At least you got your money back," as if that erased the betrayal. I learned to be more selective about who I shared personal struggles with. Our new house hunt became a healing ritual in an unexpected way. Looking at potential homes, imagining our future in different spaces, planning where we'd put our furniture, it felt like reclaiming control over our destiny. The real estate agent probably thought we were the happiest house hunters she'd ever worked with. We'd walk through empty rooms holding hands, talking about which bedroom might become a nursery someday, where we'd put David's home office. Speaking of the nursery conversation, Rachel's theft had an unintended consequence that took us months to recognize. The stress and trauma had made us both more aware of what we really wanted from life. "I don't want to wait anymore," David told me one evening as we toured a colonial with a perfect backyard. "Life's too short, and we've wasted enough time dealing with other people's problems." We started trying to get pregnant that month. The pregnancy test showed positive just 2 weeks before Rachel's sentencing hearing. Sitting in that courtroom, knowing I was carrying David's child while watching his sister face justice for trying to destroy our marriage, felt surreal. The judge sentenced Rachel to 2 years probation and community service, plus a permanent ban from working in banking. As we left the courthouse, I placed David's hand on my still flat stomach and whispered the news. His smile was the brightest thing in that dark chapter. Moving into our new house while pregnant added layers of emotion I hadn't anticipated. Every room we painted, every piece of furniture we arranged, felt like we were building something Rachel couldn't touch or taint. David insisted on changing all our locks, getting a security system, and opening entirely new bank accounts at a different institution. "Clean slate," he said. And I understood exactly what he meant by that. The baby's due date fell on what would have been Rachel's birthday, which felt like some kind of cosmic irony. David's parents were thrilled about becoming grandparents, but there was sadness mixed in too. "This should be a time when the whole family celebrates together," his mother said, folding tiny onesies in our nursery. The empty space where Rachel should have been lingered in conversations. A shadow that would probably always be there now. I started having dreams about teaching our child about trust, about family, about the difference between loyalty and enabling bad behavior. In these dreams, I was explaining to a teenager why they'd never met their aunt, why some family members weren't safe to be around. It's a conversation I hope we never have to have, but I know it's coming eventually. How do you explain that love and trust aren't the same thing? Our counselor helped us understand that what Rachel did was a form of emotional terrorism, using intimate knowledge of our relationship to cause maximum damage. She didn't just steal money, Dr. Martinez explained during one session. She tried to steal your faith in your marriage, your sense of security, your ability to trust your own judgment. Understanding it that way helped me stop blaming myself for doubting David during those awful weeks. The first family gathering after the baby was born felt like walking through a minefield. Everyone was careful not to mention Rachel, but her absence was louder than words. David's aunt kept making comments about how some people don't deserve to be part of this joy, while shooting meaningful looks around the room. Our daughter, Emma, became the center of attention in a way that felt both wonderful and slightly overwhelming. Sometimes healing happens in layers, not all at once. Emma's first Christmas brought unexpected peace to our family dynamics. Watching David's parents hold their granddaughter, seeing genuine joy return to family gatherings, I realized we'd survived something that could have destroyed us. Not just financially, but emotionally and relationally. The new traditions we were building felt stronger because they were chosen consciously, not just inherited. We were creating the family we wanted Emma to know. Now, as I write this with Emma napping in her crib upstairs, I can say that Rachel's betrayal changed us in ways that were ultimately positive. We communicate better, trust more intentionally, and value our partnership in ways we took for granted before. The money she stole was returned, but the lessons we learned about loyalty, resilience, and the difference between family and relatives, those were gifts wrapped in pain that we'll treasure forever. Looking ahead, I know there will be more challenges, more opportunities for our bond to be tested. But I also know that David and I survived having our foundation shaken by someone we trusted, and we came out stronger. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the thing that teaches you how strong you really are. Sometimes the people who try to break you apart end up showing you exactly how unbreakable your love can be. The lawyer revealed more than just who drained our savings. She revealed that our marriage could weather any storm when we face it together. Rachel thought she was destroying us, but instead she gave us an unshakable confidence in each other. And now, watching Emma sleep peacefully in the home we bought with money we saved again, in a house where only love and trust are welcome, I know we chose the right path forward. Emma turned 2 last month, and with her growing independence came unexpected challenges that reminded me how much Rachel's betrayal still echoes in our daily lives. Last week, Emma knocked over her juice cup at breakfast and immediately started crying, saying, "I'm sorry, Mama, I'm sorry." The fear in her little voice broke my heart. Somehow, my hypervigilance about trust and honesty had created an environment where my toddler was afraid of making normal mistakes. I realized we still had healing work to do. David noticed it too. "She's watching us for reactions," he said, after Emma apologized 3 times for dropping her toy. We'd become so focused on rebuilding trust between ourselves that we'd forgotten how children absorb emotional tension like sponges. Our counselor, Dr. Martinez, wasn't surprised when we brought this up. "Trauma has generational effects," she explained. "Even when you think you've processed it completely, it shows up in unexpected ways." We needed to learn how to model healthy trust, not just anxious vigilance. The irony wasn't lost on me that Rachel's theft had made me overly protective of our family's emotional safety, which was now affecting Emma's sense of security. During playdates, I found myself watching other parents too carefully, wondering about their motives, their financial situations, whether they resented our nice house or David's job. This wasn't the mother I wanted to be, constantly suspicious of people who were probably just trying to make mom friends and navigate toddler social dynamics. David's promotion at work brought new pressures I hadn't anticipated. More money meant more responsibility, longer hours, and unfortunately, more family members suddenly reaching out after years of silence. His cousin Mark, who'd sided with Rachel during the legal proceedings, called to congratulate David and casually mentioned needing help with his mortgage payment. "Family should help family," Mark said, using the exact phrase Rachel's defenders had thrown at us. David's jaw tightened as he politely declined. The frequency of these requests was startling. David's uncle needed car repairs. A distant cousin wanted investment advice. His grandmother's neighbor somehow got our number and asked for help with medical bills. Each call felt like a test of the boundaries we'd learned to set. "It's like they think we won the lottery instead of having our savings stolen and returned," David said after hanging up on the third request that week. The assumption that we owed anyone our financial recovery felt deeply unfair. I started understanding why some lottery winners change their phone numbers and move without leaving forwarding addresses. Money, even modest success, seems to bring out feelings in people that they can't or won't examine. David's college roommate, who'd never called on birthdays or holidays, suddenly wanted to reconnect and discuss a business opportunity. The pattern was so obvious, it would have been funny if it weren't so exhausting. We were learning to say no without justifying our decisions. Emma's second birthday party became an unexpected test of our new boundaries. David's Aunt Sharon, who'd been cool toward us since Rachel's sentencing, showed up with an expensive gift and spent the afternoon making pointed comments about people who turn their backs on family. When she cornered me in the kitchen and suggested we drop the charges against Rachel for the sake of family unity, I felt my old anxieties flare up. But this time, I was ready. "Sharon," I said, keeping my voice calm while Emma played in the next room. "Rachel stole from us and tried to destroy our marriage. The charges aren't about revenge, they're about consequences. If someone breaks into your house, you don't drop charges because they're related to you." Her face flushed, but she didn't argue. Later, David found me and squeezed my hand. "I heard what you said to Sharon. I'm proud of you." Standing up for ourselves was getting easier with practice. The real test came when Rachel herself reached out, not to us directly, but through David's mother. She'd completed her community service and wanted to meet Emma, her only niece. "She's changed," David's mother insisted over Sunday dinner. "She's been in therapy. She's got a new job. She wants to make amends." The hopefulness in her voice was painful to hear. Grandparents want their families whole, but some breaks can't be mended with good intentions and time. David and I talked for hours that night about forgiveness versus reconciliation, about what we owed Rachel versus what we owed ourselves and Emma. "I can forgive her for what she did to us," David said, holding my hand in our darkened bedroom, "but I can't trust her around our daughter. And I won't pretend that family erases what she tried to do to our marriage." We decided that some relationships are too dangerous to resurrect, no matter how much it hurts other people we love. The conversation with David's parents was one of the hardest we'd had since the initial theft. They sat in our living room, watching Emma play with blocks, and listened as we explained our decision. "We understand you want your family healed," I said. "But our job is to protect Emma, not to fix Rachel's relationship with consequences." David's father nodded slowly, though his mother cried. "We raised 2 children," she whispered. "We don't know where we went wrong with Rachel." The guilt in her voice was heartbreaking. That night, after his parents left, David and I sat on our back porch watching Emma chase fireflies in our yard. "Do you ever worry we're being too harsh?" he asked. I thought about the woman who'd looked me in the eye and told me my husband regretted marrying me, all while stealing our future. "I worry about being too soft," I admitted. "I worry about teaching Emma that family means tolerating betrayal. I'd rather err on the side of protecting her than exposing her to someone who's shown they can't be trusted." Emma's language development brought unexpected moments of clarity about trust and safety. When she started using words like mine and no, I realized these were the exact boundaries Rachel had violated. A 2-year-old understands consent better than a grown woman who stole from her brother's family. Watching Emma learn to protect her toys, to say no when she didn't want to share, to trust that her parents would keep her safe, it reinforced that our caution wasn't paranoia, it was wisdom. The anniversary of discovering the theft passed quietly this year, but it still marked something significant. 3 years ago, I was a woman who trusted easily, who assumed family meant safety, who believed that love conquered all problems. Now I'm someone who trusts intentionally, who knows the difference between forgiveness and foolishness, who understands that protecting your family sometimes means disappointing other family members. The growth has been painful, but necessary. David's new job brought us into contact with other couples who'd survived family financial betrayals, and I was shocked to learn how common our experience was. At a company dinner, I met Sarah, whose brother had stolen their elderly mother's pension. At Emma's daycare, another parent mentioned her sister-in-law's credit card fraud. These conversations were both comforting and depressing. We weren't alone, but we weren't unique either. Family financial abuse happens more than anyone wants to admit. Our financial advisor suggested setting up a trust fund for Emma's college education, something that would be protected even if David and I both died unexpectedly. Discussing worst-case scenarios felt morbid, but it was also empowering. We were building safeguards not just against theft, but against manipulation, against anyone who might try to guilt Emma into supporting relatives who hadn't earned her trust. "We're teaching her that money is a tool," David said, "not a weapon or a guilt trip." Sometimes I wonder what Rachel thinks about when she sees Emma's photos on David's parents' social media. If she realizes she's missing watching her niece grow up because she chose immediate financial gain over long-term relationships. But mostly, I don't think about Rachel at all anymore. She's become a cautionary tale we tell ourselves when we need to remember why boundaries matter, why trust must be earned and maintained, why love without accountability isn't really love at all. As I watch Emma sleep tonight, her little hand curled around her favorite stuffed elephant, I'm grateful for the hard lessons that brought us to this peaceful moment. Our family is smaller now, but it's stronger. Our bank account is protected, but more importantly, our hearts are protected too. Sometimes the worst betrayal teaches you the most valuable lesson, that the people who truly love you will respect your boundaries, not try to tear them down. The lawyer didn't just reveal who drained our savings. She revealed how to build a life where trust is based on evidence, not hope. Where family is defined by actions, not genetics. Where protection isn't paranoia, but wisdom. And tonight, in our safe home with our beloved daughter sleeping peacefully upstairs, I know we chose correctly. Some relationships are worth fighting for. Others are worth walking away from. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Emma started preschool this fall, and with it came a flood of new social dynamics I wasn't prepared for. Other parents invited us to play dates, birthday parties, family gatherings where everyone seemed to know each other's business. "Emma's mom works at the dental office, right?" one father asked at pickup. "And her dad's the regional manager at Morrison Industries?" I smiled politely, but internally I was calculating how much personal information was floating around this parent network and whether any of it could be weaponized against us. The hypervigilance felt exhausting, but I couldn't seem to turn it off. When Emma came home talking about how Madison's mommy has a big house with a pool, I found myself wondering if the other parents were discussing our financial recovery, our new neighborhood, the fact that we'd moved up in the world after some family drama. David laughed when I shared these concerns, but gently. "Amanda, not everyone is Rachel," he reminded me. "Sometimes a playdate is just a playdate." He was right, but learning to trust again was harder than I'd expected. Emma's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, requested a parent conference in October, and my first thought was panic. Had Emma said something about bad family members or people who steal money? But the meeting was about Emma's advanced reading skills and her tendency to be overly helpful with struggling classmates. "She has remarkable emotional intelligence for a 4-year-old, Mrs. Rodriguez said. "She seems to understand when other children are upset and tries to comfort them. Apparently our family trauma had created an empathetic child, not a damaged one." That conversation sparked something in me I hadn't expected, pride in how we'd handled an impossible situation. Emma was thriving because David and I had done the hard work of healing ourselves first. We'd gone to counseling, set boundaries, rebuilt trust, and created a secure home environment. Our daughter was kind, confident, and emotionally aware, because we'd refused to let Rachel's betrayal poison our family's emotional climate. Sometimes good parenting looks like protecting your children from your own damage. The holidays brought the annual conversation about family gatherings, but this year David's parents approached it differently. Instead of lobbying for Rachel's inclusion, they asked what would make us most comfortable. "We want Emma to know her grandparents," his mother said, "but we understand why you need to protect your family." The shift from guilt to respect felt monumental. It had taken 3 years, but they were finally accepting our boundaries instead of trying to negotiate around them. David's father pulled me aside during Thanksgiving dinner and said something that caught me off guard. "I want to thank you for holding firm about Rachel," he said quietly, while Emma played with her cousins in the next room. "We raised her, and we love her. But what she did was unforgivable. You protected David and Emma, and you probably protected us too from more financial manipulation down the road." The acknowledgement meant more than I could express. Validation from family felt like a gift I'd been waiting years to receive. Christmas morning brought an unexpected test when Emma found an unmarked present under our tree. My heart stopped until David picked up the attached note. It was from our neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who'd been dropping off homemade cookies for Emma all month. "I made too many holiday treats," the note read. "Thought Emma might enjoy the cookie decorating kit." The relief I felt was immediately followed by embarrassment at my reaction. 4 years later, I was still seeing threats where none existed. That evening, after Emma was asleep, David and I had an honest conversation about my ongoing anxiety around trust. "I hate that Rachel took away my ability to accept kindness at face value," I admitted. "Mrs. Chen has been nothing but wonderful to us, and my first thought was panic about a mysterious gift." David held me while I cried, not for the first time, about losing my natural openness to people. Some kinds of healing take longer than others, and some wounds leave scars that ache before storms. Emma's 4th birthday party became a celebration of how far we'd come as a family. Our guest list was small but genuine, friends who'd supported us through the worst, David's parents and uncle, a few families from preschool who'd proven trustworthy over months of casual interaction. Watching Emma blow out her candles, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about her well-being, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: uncomplicated joy. Not happiness despite our circumstances, but happiness because of how we'd rebuilt our lives. David got a call from his mother in March that shook us both. Rachel had been arrested again, credit card fraud at her new job. "She hasn't learned anything," his mother said through tears. "The therapist? The community service? The second chances? None of it mattered." David held the phone away from his ear and looked at me with something like relief mixed with sadness. Our instinct to maintain distance had been correct, but there was no satisfaction in being right about something so painful. The news about Rachel's second arrest actually helped David's extended family understand our position in a way that years of explanation hadn't. Suddenly, the relatives who'd called us unforgiving were acknowledging that maybe we'd been wise to protect ourselves. David's cousin Mark, who'd asked for mortgage help and criticized our hard-heartedness, called to apologize. "You saw something the rest of us didn't want to see," he said. "Sometimes vindication comes too late to feel good, but it still brings a certain peace." Emma started asking more sophisticated questions about family this year. "Why don't I have an Aunt Rachel like Tommy has an Aunt Lisa?" she asked one day while we were driving to gymnastics class. David and I had prepared for this conversation, but the reality of it still felt overwhelming. "Some adults make choices that hurt their family," I explained carefully. "When that happens, we protect ourselves by keeping distance from those people, even if we still love them." Emma nodded solemnly, accepting this explanation with remarkable maturity. That conversation led to broader discussions about trust, boundaries, and how love doesn't mean tolerating harmful behavior. Emma absorbed these lessons like a sponge, applying them to preschool drama with remarkable wisdom. When a classmate started taking toys without asking, Emma told her teacher instead of giving in to keep the peace. "Mama says people who care about us respect our no," she explained when I asked how she'd handled the situation. Sometimes the best parenting happens when you teach your children lessons you had to learn the hard way. Our 5th wedding anniversary since the theft felt different than the previous ones. Instead of marking survival, we were celebrating growth. David had been promoted again. I'd started teaching hygiene education at local schools. And Emma was thriving in every measurable way. More importantly, we'd learned to build trust intentionally rather than assume it existed. Our relationship felt more solid than it had before Rachel's betrayal, built on conscious choice rather than comfortable assumption. The financial security we'd rebuilt allowed us to start giving back in ways that felt meaningful. We began donating to organizations that help families recover from financial fraud, and David started volunteering with a nonprofit that provides financial literacy education to young adults. If we can help one person recognize manipulation before it destroys their savings, he said, maybe something good comes from what we went through. Turning pain into purpose felt like the final stage of healing. I found myself thinking less about Rachel and more about the life we were building without her shadow over it. Emma would grow up in a family that valued honesty, respected boundaries, and understood that love requires accountability. She would know that she was protected, valued, and worth defending from anyone who might try to harm her. Those lessons felt infinitely more valuable than the money Rachel had stolen and returned. Our new normal included quarterly financial meetings with our advisor, regular check-ins with Dr. Martinez, and monthly date nights that were non-negotiable. We'd learned that maintaining trust requires ongoing effort, that healing isn't a destination, but a practice. Emma had grown up seeing parents who communicated openly, respected each other's concerns, and prioritized their family's well-being over others' expectations. These weren't lessons we'd planned to teach through trauma, but they'd become foundational to who we were as a family. Looking back, I could see how Rachel's betrayal had been a terrible gift wrapped in devastating pain. It had forced us to become intentional about trust, conscious about boundaries, and deliberate about the family we wanted to create. Emma was growing up with a level of emotional security that I'd never had. The knowledge that her parents would protect her, that family meant safety, that love came with respect. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you clears the way for the best life you never knew you wanted. Tonight, as I write this with Emma and David both sleeping peacefully upstairs, I feel something I never expected to feel about that awful day when I discovered our empty bank account. Gratitude. Not for the theft itself, but for what surviving it taught us about resilience, about the difference between family and relatives, about building a life based on conscious choice rather than blind trust. The lawyer didn't just reveal who drained our savings, she revealed who we really were when everything was stripped away. And that turned out to be enough to build something beautiful. Emma turned 6 this spring, and with her starting 1st grade came a milestone I hadn't anticipated: the gradual fading of my hypervigilance about trust and safety. Watching her confidently navigate new friendships, share snacks without anxiety, and trust her teacher completely reminded me that children are remarkably resilient when they're raised in genuine security. She radiated the kind of open confidence that I'd lost for years but was finally rebuilding in myself. Healing, it turns out, happens in different timelines for everyone in the family. David's career had flourished in ways that surprised us both. His regional manager position had evolved into a vice president role, and with it came opportunities we'd never imagined. But more importantly, success felt safe now in ways it hadn't before Rachel's theft. We'd learned to protect our good fortune without becoming paranoid about it, to enjoy our blessings without broadcasting them to people who might resent them. Financial security with emotional wisdom felt like the best possible combination for raising our daughter. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning in September, 6 years after everything started. David's mother's voice was shaky but determined. "Rachel's getting out of prison next month," she said. "She's been writing letters, asking to see Emma, saying she's a changed person. I wanted you to hear it from me before she tries to contact you directly." My stomach dropped, but the panic I expected didn't come. Instead, I felt a calm certainty that surprised me. We'd made our decision years ago, and prison didn't change our reasoning. David's reaction was equally measured when I told him that evening. 6 years of therapy, 3 different therapists, and I still feel nothing but sadness when I think about her," he said while we folded Emma's laundry together. "Not anger anymore, not even disappointment. Just sadness that she chose to become someone we can't trust around our daughter." The evolution of his feelings from rage to grief to acceptance had been painful to witness, but this final stage felt healthy and complete. Emma's questions about family had become more sophisticated as she'd grown, and we'd answered them honestly but age-appropriately. She knew she had an aunt who'd made bad choices and couldn't be part of our family because of those choices. Like how Mrs. Peterson can't have sugar because of her diabetes? Emma had asked last year, trying to understand permanent consequences. "Sort of," I'd replied. "Some choices change things forever, and we have to accept that." Her matter-of-fact acceptance had reassured me that our approach was working. The letter arrived 3 weeks later, addressed to both David and me in Rachel's familiar handwriting. David opened it while I finished making Emma's lunch for school. 5 pages of careful curse work, full of apologies and explanations, promises of change and pleas for forgiveness. The final paragraph asked for one chance to meet Emma, just once, to show you I'm different now. David read it aloud, his voice steady but tired. When he finished, we looked at each other in silence for a long moment. "What do you think?" he asked, though I could tell from his expression that his mind was already made up. "I think," I said carefully, "that people can change, but that doesn't erase consequences. I think Emma deserves to grow up knowing that actions have permanent results. And I think 6 years in prison doesn't automatically rebuild trust that took 30 years to destroy." David nodded, folding the letter back into its envelope. "Should we write back?" I considered this for a moment before shaking my head. Some conversations are finished even when the other person wants to keep talking. Emma's 6th birthday party was a testament to the life we'd built without Rachel's drama overshadowing it. Our backyard was full of genuine friends, families from her school, neighbors who'd become close, David's parents and uncle who'd learned to respect our boundaries completely. Watching Emma laugh with her friends, confident in her place in our small but solid circle, I felt profound gratitude for the choice we'd made to prioritize her security over other people's comfort with our decisions. The conversation with Emma came naturally a few months later when she mentioned a classmate whose uncle had come back from timeout for grown-ups. We explained that sometimes adults have to go to jail when they make bad choices, and that Aunt Rachel had been in that situation. "Will I ever meet her?" Emma asked with the directness that 6-year-olds master. "Probably not," David answered honestly. "But that's to keep you safe, not to be mean to her." Emma nodded and returned to her coloring, accepting this reality with the resilience of a child raised in honest security. David's parents had their own journey with acceptance, but by Emma's 6th birthday, they'd stopped asking us to reconsider. Instead, they'd become fiercely protective of our family's peace. When Rachel wrote to them asking for our address, they didn't provide it. When she called asking them to convince us to meet, they firmly declined. "You made your choices," David's mother had finally told her. "Now you have to live with the results." Watching them evolve from enablers to protectors had been another unexpected gift of this difficult journey. Our financial life had stabilized into something I could have never imagined during those first terrifying days of discovering the theft. We'd built multiple layers of protection: separate emergency accounts, investment portfolios, college funds for Emma that no one could access without both our signatures. More importantly, we'd learned to talk about money openly, to make financial decisions together, to trust our own judgment about what we could afford to give away versus what we needed to protect. Financial literacy had become a form of self-defense. The success of David's career had brought unexpected opportunities for us to help other families navigate similar betrayals. He'd become a board member for the nonprofit that helps fraud victims, and I'd started facilitating support groups for people rebuilding trust after family financial abuse. Sharing our story in controlled, helpful contexts had transformed it from a source of shame into a tool for healing others. Pain transformed into purpose felt like the ultimate victory over Rachel's attempt to destroy us. Emma's confidence in social situations continued to amaze me. She made friends easily, but also set boundaries clearly when needed. I don't want to share my special markers, she told a classmate who'd been grabbing her supplies. But you can use the regular ones. Watching her navigate these small conflicts with such clarity reminded me that children raised in homes with healthy boundaries learn to create healthy boundaries themselves. She was growing up with skills it had taken me decades to develop. The 7th anniversary of the theft passed without either David or I mentioning it until evening. "Do you realize what day it is?" he asked while we watched Emma play in our backyard, and I smiled in recognition. 7 years ago, I thought our world was ending, I replied. Now I can't imagine our life any other way. The woman who'd discovered that empty bank account felt like a stranger to me now. Well-meaning but naive, trusting without wisdom, loving without boundaries. Our marriage had evolved into something deeper than I'd thought possible. We'd learned to communicate about difficult things immediately rather than letting them fester. We made major decisions together, respected each other's concerns even when they seemed irrational, and prioritized our family's well-being over anyone else's expectations. The naive young woman who'd married David 8 years earlier had become a wife and mother who could protect what mattered most without apology or explanation. Last month, Emma asked me what I'd learned from the sad thing that happened with Aunt Rachel before she was born. I thought carefully before answering. I learned that loving someone and trusting someone are different things, I told her. I learned that protecting your family isn't mean, it's necessary. And I learned that the worst things that happen to you sometimes teach you the most important lessons about what really matters. She nodded seriously, filing this wisdom away for future use. As I write this final entry, Emma is 7 and thriving in 2nd grade. David has been offered a promotion that would move us to Colorado, and I'm pregnant with our 2nd child. The life we've built from the ashes of that betrayal feels solid, intentional, and deeply protected. We've learned to trust wisely, love with boundaries, and protect our family without apology. Rachel's theft taught us the difference between being naive and being kind, between being forgiving and being foolish. The lawyer who revealed who drained our savings did more than solve a crime. She set us on a path toward becoming the people we were meant to be. Stronger, wiser, more intentional about every relationship we allow into our lives. Emma will grow up knowing that love means respect, that family means safety, that trust is earned and maintained through consistent actions over time. She'll never be as naive as I once was, and I'm grateful for that. Tonight, as I look around our safe home with our sleeping daughter upstairs and our 2nd child growing beneath my heart, I feel something I never expected to feel about that terrible discovery 7 years ago. Deep, abiding gratitude, not for the betrayal itself, but for the strength it revealed in us, the wisdom it forced us to develop, the family it helped us become. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you clears the way for the best life you never knew you could build. And we built something beautiful,